It's a very important day for your sister. The least you can do is to be happy for her. Put up a fake smile if you must, but please, dear, let go of that frown on your face." Blood coursed through my veins as I hear the annoying voice of Betty Adams say from right beside me as we entered the chapel. You would think a mother should have her daughter's back more than anything, but I guess when you're her least favorite child, that's bound to happen. That is why today, being the 21st day of March, I am walking my younger sister down the aisle to meet her future husband, whom I thought was the love of my life 4 weeks ago. My story is short. I met Owens Pierce in my first year at the university, studying medicine, and thought we had something magical. Turned out there was nothing magical about us, and he only used me to get closer to my little sister. I was the fool in my short story, and 4 weeks ago, when they finally came out and told me the truth, I felt weak and unable to do anything. To make matters worse, they announced their engagement a week later, hinting at their eagerness to get married. Owens and I dated for 3 years, and not once in those 3 years did he speak about getting married. But I guess when you meet the right one, you know. I was the wrong one all along. Tatiana, my 20-year-old sister, with whom I have since developed an estranged relationship since I found out about her affairs with Owens, made me her maid of honor and the chief coordinator for her grand wedding. The last thing I wanted was to be anywhere near both of them. I needed a lot of distance to get over the heartbreak and the betrayal from both my ex-boyfriend and my sister. I chose to be the mature one, and I wished them well, but I wanted to do it from miles away. They placed the burden of the maid of honor on my shoulder, despite my best attempt to decline. In Tatiana's words, doing this would be my way of proving I was really over it. I had to agree to be her maid of honor after my mother stepped in, and the wedding preparation started 3 weeks ago. My mother saw nothing wrong with the whole situation. She had video called to give me the news of Tatiana's new boyfriend, even though she knew he was my boyfriend for 3 years and she had seen pictures of us together. The response I got from her when she saw my puffy eyes after the breakup couldn't surprise me. In her words, at least one of us got to be happy. No, the Adams did not adopt me, and neither was Betty my evil stepmother. I was her daughter, and I became her least favorite amongst the other 2 after my father died. My parents had us 3, Lionel being the oldest, Tatiana being the youngest, and then there was me. Lionel would have been our mother's favorite if he wasn't a drug-addicted junkie. So mother shifted her love to her youngest child, Tatiana, skipping her second. Meeting Owens 3 years ago was a breath of fresh air. He was nice and good-looking with his red-brown hair and sky-blue eyes that made me smile every time he stared at me. He treated me much better than everyone in my family, except Lionel. It was easy to fall in love with him when he always said the things I wanted to hear and did the things that made me feel seen and wanted. He was from a very rich and respected family in our town, and girls wanted to be with him and boys wanted to be like him. Little did I know he was grooming himself for my sister. As the famous saying goes, the Adams cannot lose both ways, and in my case, they didn't. I lost, but Tatiana got him, and today she will become his wife. I cried the first week of the breakup. I have since found comfort by reminding myself how this was better than marrying someone whose show of love was a charade all along. Dia, my best friend, had told me to give my family the middle finger for pushing for me to be the maid of honor for my sister at her wedding. To an extent, I wanted to do that, rebel and make sure their day was as disastrous as it should be, but I wasn't a vengeful person. I had never known myself to be and didn't want to become that because of them. Lionel was the only one on my side, but since they did not regard his opinion of the family, there was nothing he could do. In times like these, I wished my father was still here with us. He would have had my back, but sadly, he died 7 years ago in a car crash while on the way to my secondary school swimming competition. The sounding of the melodious trumpets signaling the bride's presence went off, and all those gathered at the chapel rose to their feet. With a beaming smile on her face, Tatiana made her way towards the altar where Owens Pierce stood in a black tuxedo waiting for her with a charming smile on his face. I looked away from the altar, and as my eyes drifted, they met with Lionel, who stood with mixed emotion on his round tan face. His eyes met mine and broke with pity, and that made me madder, and my grimace grew. My knuckles turned white with the lack of blood flow because of how tightly I had clenched my fist. We finally made it to the altar after what seemed to be forever, and the congregation gathered and took their seats. We gathered here to witness the joining of these two wonderful people in holy matrimony, and also to join the Watson and the Adams, the priest began. A scoff left my mouth at his words, and Tatiana glared at me, but her glare could not compare to the one mother cast my way from the left side of the chapel where she sat. I ignored them, and the priest continued like no one had interrupted. He read the Bible passage and then read out the vows. Grinning like an idiot, Owen said, "I do," and Tatiana did the same with a gleeful face. Is there anyone that has a reason these two shouldn't be joined in holy matrimony? The chapel grew as silent as the grave for a few seconds, and I thought back to what Dia had suggested, flashing my mom, sister, and Owens the middle finger. It would make this perfect wedding a disaster. It would also make me the villain, the hater of good things and the worst member of the Addams family. At the same time, this would make me so happy, and I'll have Lionel to have my back. But I couldn't do that. I wasn't a horrible person. No one said a thing, and the union was sealed. The couple then moved to the reception venue, the Beverly Hall, one of the biggest event hall in the town where dancing and singing and food were. I kept a reasonable distance, watching the new couple laugh and smile lovingly at each other. It made my stomach turn in disgust, and I turned my eyes away. "Do not be a hater of good things," Betty said her famous line, coming to stand beside me with a glass of red wine in her hand. "Your sister is happy. That's what's important." Luckily enough, Tatiana's happiness was Betty's happiness as well, and today she was dressed to kill in her peach sequins gown and made up to look like the mother of the day. I didn't even look at her. At this point, I wasn't ready to deal with her, and I couldn't stand to look at her. "What about my happiness?" I said through gritted teeth. She scoffed. "Do not be ridiculous." She took a sip of the wine in her hand and took her leave. I reached for the glass of wine on the tray of the waitress passing by and emptied it into my mouth. I placed the glass back, picked another, and walked toward the sound engineers, who positioned themselves on the left side of the hall where everyone could see. I'll show Betty what ridiculous looks like. I got over to the sound corner and requested a mic, and though the DJ gave me a weird look, I didn't give him any other option but to do what I said. He turned down the music playing, and I began to speak. "Hello, everyone. It's so nice to see all these beautiful faces." The eyes of everyone turned to me, and though I felt nervous, I continued. When the priest asked who had a reason the new couple shouldn't be joined at the chapel, I realized I didn't have a reason, so I kept silent then. I, however, have a few things to say, and it has to be heard. "Zera!" Tatiana called out, her tone warning me not to do what I had in mind, but last I checked, I was the older one amongst us. I boldly ignored her and turned to the guest staring at me. I saw Betty's cheeks burning red with rage, and I couldn't have loved it more. Today, my sister became the wife of this guy, whom 1 month ago was in my bed, telling me how much he loved me. Turned out, he didn't love me as I thought in the past 3 years. He was just waiting for my sister to become legal. A gasp went through the crowd, and I mentally patted myself on the back. I will burn this fucking ship to the ground. A month ago, they came out to me about their relationship, and 3 weeks ago they announced their wedding. I would have said too soon, but they've known each other for the past 3 years, and that's long enough. I am not mad at them. How can I be? They are in love. At least, that's what they told me. My mother gave them her blessing and demanded I be Tatiana's maid of honor today, despite knowing I dated Owen for the last 3 years. She asked me to be happy for my sister. I am happy for her, but I thought family was supposed to have your back, not kick you in the teeth while you're down. Betty tried to surge towards me, but Lionel held her back. Before you wonder if I was adopted, I am not. 7 years ago, I lost my father, and my mother had placed the blame on me ever since then. My vision blurred up as I spoke, and my voice choked up a little. I wished my father was here too, because if he was, he would never do this to me. The tear ran down my face and I quickly wiped it off and blinked the rest back in. I had to finish what I started. In the last 3 weeks, I have wondered what I even saw in Owen. He had the most annoying voice I ever heard, and he snored too loud for my liking. He also chewed with his mouth open and had the most annoying morning breath. All this I overlooked because I believed he was worth it, but now I realize I was so desperate to be seen that I accepted what came my way as the best, even though it wasn't. It was never real. I turned to Tatiana, who now had a face almost as red as Betty's, and I couldn't tell if it was from anger or embarrassment. "You can have him, sis. I didn't lose anything, and I am happy for you." I handed the mic back to the DJ and took my leave from the now quiet hall. I did not look back until I was out of the event hall. I dragged a deep breath and my eyes fluttered, feeling alive for the first time in the last 7 years. "What the hell did you think you did in there?" Betty yelled at me, her eyes blazing and shooting daggers at me. I turned to face her, having no remorse or apology in my eyes. What I should have done a long time ago. Enjoy the rest of your life with the only daughter you now have, I said, and walked away from her with my head held high. I sat across the bar taking my second glass of martini. This used to be my least favorite drink while I dated Owens, but today it seemed to be just what I needed. I hadn't gone home since I left the event hall hours ago. My phone had been blowing up for hours, and I finally put it on, Do Not Disturb. It was almost 11 p.m., and I was at the Paradise Club. I wasn't interested in joining the dance floor, so I sat at the bar drinking. I was never a good dancer. It would not start today. I was still in my maid of honor's dress, makeup, and heels. The dress was once a long silk gown which flowed to the ground, and that was how it was when I left Tatiana's wedding reception. However, I tore the dress hours ago, so that now it stopped on my knees. I let my dirty blonde hair, which was in a neat bun, loose so it fell over my shoulders. This was me getting out of my comfort zone. If Dia could see me now, she would flip and then cheer me on. I was the cautious one amongst the two of us, but for today, I would throw caution to the wind and live like no one is watching. "Is this seat taken?" I heard a deep voice ask. My head whipped around to find an average-height man with golden blonde hair looking to be in his mid-20s in a blue, round-necked polo. He had the looks and body build of someone on the university football team, and from the look of it, he knew it too and took it as an advantage. I shook my head. "No, it's not," I answered, and he descended on the stool next to me that very second. I returned my focus to the glass in my hand, and I emptied the second round into my mouth and waved at the bartender, whom I was yet to get his name to bring me another round. He smiled and returned to fill up my glass, and I flashed him a grin, mumbling a thank you loud enough for him to hear. The one seated next to me cleared his throat, and I inwardly groaned, knowing what was coming next. "So, are you here with someone?" I wanted to say no, that was the truth. I came here alone, but I have had a few encounters before and they had never ended well. Most times the males end up assuming that you're single and hence shouldn't say no to them. I didn't want to go down that road today, and so I nodded. "Yes, I am," I replied, and sipped my glass of martini. I had hoped to end the question at just that, but who was I kidding? I knew a simple yes wouldn't chase a man away. It never had. Most men would want to know more, see if the competition was one they can take on, all the while ignoring your need to be left alone. Where is he? 'Cause it's a shame that a pretty young thing like you is drinking all alone without him. By the way, I'm Kevin. He tried to sound tougher than he was, and it irked my skin. I turned around, wanting to find a man at the lounge across from me that would look intimidating enough to send Mr. Tough Guy here running. My eyes scanned over the men seated at the lounge on my left side, and all the men seemed occupied with a woman or two. There was no way he would believe I was with them. Just when I was about to open my mouth and tell Kevin my man must have stepped out and have him call me a liar, I spotted a man standing in a white long-sleeved and blue trousers at the corner of the lounge. He had his back turned to me, so I couldn't make out his face, and he seemed to be on a call. But he was the only one without a woman attached to his hips, and I just found myself, my man. There. I pointed to the man who had his free hand stuffed into his pocket and stood proud and intimidating enough, the one in white long sleeve across the lounge. He's been busy on the phone since we came, and so I've kept myself occupied here. I finished and turned to see the look of insecurity in his eyes, just like I wanted. I returned my focus to the vodka before me. I was on my 3rd shot now, and I aimed to stop at my 6th. You sure about that? Because he just stepped out without even glancing this way. Came the voice of Kevin, whom I thought had taken his leave after seeing who my man was and realizing he was no match for him. I choked on the martini in my mouth as his words dawned on me. My head whipped to the corner of the lounge, and the man was no longer there. Oh well, here we go. My brain was already too slow with the events of the day and the martini I was taking to think about what excuse I could give now. When nothing came up after a few seconds of waiting, I spoke. I didn't say we were on the best of terms. That's why he's over there and I'm over here. And the lies continue. How about he doesn't even know you, and you've been lying ever since, just to make yourself feel good? No, I was just trying to get rid of you and nothing has worked yet. I thought to myself, since my lies couldn't get rid of him, perhaps the truth would. Maybe you're right, maybe I lied and I don't know him, but guess what? I hiccuped, paused, and continued. I didn't ask you to talk to me, so I'd advise you to stop now. He scoffed. Yes, sure, I'd stop. I don't want to be anywhere near a loser like you anyway. I wanted to grab the bottle of vodka the bartender had left on the other side of the counter and smash it against the head of the annoying asshole called Kevin, but I couldn't. Drunk of not, I wasn't a violent person, but he deserved to feel pain for calling me a loser. I was still lost deep in thought when I heard, "Excuse me, hun, is this guy bothering you?" A deep, hoarse English-accented voice asked from behind. My head whipped around so fast that I feared it would fall off. My eyes met the deep-set eyes of the man on the white long sleeve and blue trousers, which I had spotted at the corner of the lounge and referred to as my man earlier. He now stood before me, looking dreamy, with his black hair that had a few over his face, piercing eyes whose shades flickered with each change in the room's lighting. His lips were full, and his short, trimmed beards covered his chiseled jaw. I could be wrong, but he looked to be around 6'3" tall, and his body, although hidden in the long sleeve and trousers, screamed perfection at me. After a while of me staring at him and not saying anything, he smiled and his deep dimple appeared, causing weakening shivers to run through me. My legs clamped together, shocked at the effect this man had on me. It was surreal, yet it was. This gorgeous man was here, talking to me, asking if I was being bothered, and I had to answer. Stop acting like an idiot. I nodded, pouting, and I saw the annoying Kevin who had bothered me for the last 10 minutes tremble with fear from the corner of my eyes. He is! He wouldn't leave me alone, and he called me a loser. The man's adorable eyes flickered and a furious storm brewed over them in the next second. His eyes darted to the now trembling Kevin beside me. You called her a loser? He demanded, towering over the man like a hulk. It was a mistake, he stuttered. I tried to hold in my laughter, and I was certain he would end up peeing his pant if care wasn't taken. As much as I wanted him to pay for calling me a loser, that was the last thing I wanted. The man in the long sleeve looked to be ready to inflict pain from what I saw, and I didn't want that. I stumbled off my seat and moved towards the hot man, who still had his intimidating gaze on the shivering Kevin. I placed my hand on his chest and felt the muscles underneath, and it sent chills through me. For a moment, I was lost for the words to say, and I couldn't take my hand away from his chest either. He glanced down at me, and the fury in his eyes reduced, and as if reading my thought, he turned to the shivering Kevin and spoke. "Apologize," his terrifying voice commanded. Kevin bowed his head a little. "I'm sorry, miss," he quickly said, so much respect in his voice. "Now leave," he thundered. In the same second, the shivering Kevin scrambled away, not daring to look back at us. I found enough strength and withdrew my hand from his chest, wrapping my other cold hand around it and smiling awkwardly at him. "Thank you for eyeing in and speaking up for me. No you didn't, T have to." I spoke, the hiccups coming in and ruining the flow of my appreciation line. "Damn it," he smiled, not fazed by the mess of an appreciation I was giving. "You're welcome. May I seat?" He raised a brow. He didn't have to ask. The answer would be an automatic yes. Having him stand so close makes me feel giddy, and I knew that would also happen when he sat as well. I bit my lips and nodded. Sure, you can. He settled on the chair before me, and the smell of him engulfed my mind. I needed something strong to take away the nasty thought clouding my head. The martini was nice, but not for moments like these. I waved at the bartender and ordered a shot of pure whiskey. I wasn't a heavy drinker, but I wanted to get wasted and then called Dia, who was on speed dial, to come and take me home after. From here to the university campus was 30 minutes. Not that long. So, you live around here? The voice of the gorgeous man in the long sleeve asked after a long while of silence went by. Not really. I stay at the university campus. It's 30 minutes away. I answered, taking my second shot of whiskey. I could feel the alcohol kicking in my system, and I knew a few more shots and I'll be where I want to be. I felt his brow rise. How will you get home then? My best friend. I'll call her to come and pick me up when I'm done, I replied, surprising myself with how well I spoke this long line of sentences. Okay, that's better. What's your name if you don't mind me asking? Ah, finally he asked. My name is Zera Adams, I answered, keeping my eyes fixed on the glass in my hands because I knew if I as much as stared at him, I would feel tempted to give him a blowjob here and now or have him fuck my brains out. It would be a story to tell Dia. I bet she would high-five me. What's your name? Aaron Hart, he answered. A hot name for a hot man. Well, this whiskey isn't helping me numb my wild thought. I ordered the third shot. The bartender serves it, and while I drank, I noticed Aaron didn't. Instead, he watched me. That felt odd. Okay, stay with me. I wasn't the ugliest girl I know, but I wasn't the prettiest either. He, however, was the most gorgeous guy I had ever met, and I knew he could have any girl he wanted. I also knew he had met hotter, prettier, and much more graceful girls. Girls who didn't hiccup their way through words and knew how to comport themselves in every situation. Yet here he was, staring at me like he had never seen someone better before. Can I ask a question? He asked after my fourth shot, and I was already losing my sense of reasoning. Drink this last shot and call it a night. Sure, I giggled, and he continued. Why did you come here alone? Because I had no one to take me. My reply came faster than it would under normal circumstances. No boyfriend waiting for you at home? His voice was laced with disbelief as he spoke. I bit my lips and shook my head. Poile, the boyfriend I used to have married my sister this morning. I felt more light-hearted speaking about it than I thought I would be. Perhaps this is the whiskey doing its work in my system. His loss. Well, it could be your gain, but there's a voice yelling at me in my head to tread carefully. I was also no longer seeing as bright as I was 30 minutes ago. It was time to hit the road and call Dia to the rescue. I kept my purse on the bar counter and pulled out my phone to dial Godia's number, but it slipped out of my grasp and fell to the floor. I hissed under my breath and dropped from my stool only to hear a loud bang. My eyes opened and I was in a large, cream-colored room, having white curtains at the doors and windows. I quickly sat up, only to have my head bang hard against my skull. I pressed my hand against my temple, and my eyes fluttered in pain, a long hiss rolling out of my mouth. Where am I? How did I end up here? Who brought me? These questions plagued my mind, but I couldn't find answers to them. When my eyes fluttered back, I noticed I was still in the peach maid of honor gown I had on yesterday, and that consoled me to know that nothing happened. Yet the question remained. How did I end up here? The last thing I remember was sitting at the bar counter drinking my martini, but the bang in my head told me I might have had something much stronger than a martini before leaving the club last night. I tried to retrace my steps mentally, even though it was harder done than said. I thought to the bartender, I thought to those dancing, but I remember not having the interest in joining. I remembered staying at the counter with my martini, only to be interrupted by someone. A guy, an annoying guy named Kevin, and I remember feeling very uncomfortable in his presence. Did he bring me home? My skin crawled at the thought, but I shrugged it off. He couldn't have brought me home. I don't mean to judge, but he didn't look like one who could afford something this magnificent. Someone else then? But who? My thought got interrupted as the door to the room opened and in walked a tall, gorgeous man with black hair and hazel eyes. At the sight of him, the memories of last night rushed back into my head, and I remembered everything. He was the gorgeous man I called my man just to get the annoying Kevin off me at the club. I remember him coming to my defense and intimidating douchebag Kevin out of his pants. I remember having a brief talk with him after he sent the other guy away. Now I remember switching my drink from martini to whiskey in the hope of getting the nasty thought about riding him out of my head. He also told me his name, and I did likewise. I remembered reaching my limit and wanting to call Dia to come and take me home. That was the last thing I remembered. He had changed from the white long sleeve and black trousers he had on last night, and now wore a gray sweater and joggers hiding his toned body. I wondered what could have happened that led me to this point and in this room. Sure, my clothes were still on, but a lot could still have happened. He could have worn them back after he was done taking what he wanted. Goosebumps scattered over my skin, and I felt negative chills on the inside. He didn't seem like that type of man, but no man has rapist written on his forehead. I could be jumping to a conclusion, and that won't be fair, especially if he had helped from the goodness of his heart. I snapped out of my thought when I heard him clear his throat, and I saw him standing before me with his left hand holding a small white mug stretched out. My eyes narrowed with confusion, having the "I do not know what you're doing" written in them. I blurted out like an idiot. "Drink, for the headache," he spoke, and just like when we were at the bar, his deep, hoarse voice sent shivers down my spine. He brought me something for the headache, but how did he know I was having massive pain in my head? He watched you drink yourself away at the bar. A hangover is an aftermath of drinking too much. Anyone with a cell in their brain knows that. Trust the voice in my head to make me feel dumber than I already am. He's too caring. I bit my lips and collected the cup to stare at it. It looked like green tea, except it had leaves I didn't know in them. It's herbal tea for hangovers. It has been passed down through my family for generations, he explained, seeing the suspicious way I eyed the cup in my hand. It lessens the headache after a few minutes of intake. I smiled nervously. And I'm supposed to trust that you didn't put any intoxicating substance in it, right? Why? You're already intoxicated by the sight of me from the look of it, he replied casually, but with much confidence. Wow, Mr. Hart, I didn't think you were as naughty as you were hot. My cheeks warmed up. That's because you're hot. So are you, but who's keeping scores? He winked at me. Okay, do you care to turn on the AC now? Because this is getting hotter with every second. Stop it. Zera, you still don't know if he had his way with you last night. I took the tea to my mouth and took a few sips before lowering the cup. I saw his beautiful, intent eyes, and they didn't look impressed. Take all for faster effect, he instructed. I drank the tea so that the only thing left in the small mug was the green leaves. Good girl, he cooed, and I felt giddy on the inside, as if being called a good girl was such an accomplishment. What's happening to me? He turned to leave the room, and I spoke, wanting to clarify the events of last night. As much as I was attracted to him and wanted to do nasty things to him in my head, I still had to know what happened. Can I ask a question? He paused and turned to me before nodding his head. Sure, ask. What happened last night? The last thing I remember was trying to call my best friend, and the next thing I'm here in this bed with no memory of how I got here. Well, you don't have any memory after that because you hit your head against the bar counter. You dropped your phone while trying to dial it, and when you tried to reach for it, you smacked your head and passed out. Why did you bring me here then? Why didn't you just call my friend and have her come pick me up? I crossed my arms over my chest. I did, 3 times, but she didn't answer the phone and I couldn't leave you at the club, passed out drunk. That would be reckless and dangerous. So I brought you home with me. A man that cared about my safety surely wouldn't take advantage of me. There was only one way to know. I pressed my lips together, knowing the next question I wanted to ask and feeling hesitant about it. So, did anything happen between us? No, nothing did. You were unconscious. Only a monster would want to take advantage of that. You slept through the night, and I slept in my room. Relief washed over me at his reply. I felt grateful he had not taken offense at my interrogation when all he did was try to help. He was a blessing in disguise and call me shallow, but I didn't think someone as gorgeous as him would have such a noble character. The few good-looking men I knew were good for nothing, arrogant bastards, and so he seemed to be a breath of fresh air. "Thank you." He smiled, and his deep dimple appeared, and it took all my willpower not to race over to him and poke it. "You're welcome. You could freshen up. There's a new toothbrush and paste in the bathroom on the wash-hand basin. There are a few clean clothes in the wardrobe to change into, and your bag is on the chair." He pointed to the armchair close to the window. "I'll be downstairs in the kitchen making breakfast. When you're done, you can join me," he said. Ah! A man who can cook is a man after my heart. Such a pity he's out of my league. Wait, he called you hot, which means he also might want you as much as you want him. "Thank you, Mr. Hart." Again he smiled, and this man was going to be the death of me because of those dimples. "Call me Aaron." "Yes, sir. I most definitely will." I showered and changed into the baggy sky blue trousers in the wardrobe and white polo almost twice my size, but I wasn't complaining because I felt comfortable in them. My hair I made into a bun so that my now makeup-free face now had a defined look. As instructed, I made my way out of my room and down the stairs to where the wonderful aroma was coming from, and I soon found myself in the large and well-organized kitchen. But the man standing before the cooker with an apron around his neck and back turned to me, stole my attention from everything else. He had taken off his gray sweater and had on his black tank top. "You smell clean." He spoke up despite not turning around to look at me. What does that even mean? Did I smell dirty before? "Thank you," I said, a little confused. He chuckled, and I shivered at the lovely sound coming from him. "Well, everyone smells different after they've had a bath," he added, still focused on whatever he was making. "I've never placed focus on the smell of anyone before," I mumbled to myself, but he heard. "Well, that's what makes us different." He reached for the ceramics plate beside the cooker and continued his business. I didn't know what the us meant, but I didn't want to find out. My stomach was rumbling, and I wanted to have something before I leave. "I guess you've also had your bath, and you probably smell clean." I did that when I woke up today. Bathing and staying hydrated are key to staying strong mentally. I have bathed every day of my life and have stayed hydrated as well. I've never been strong mentally, so there have to be more keys involved in the process than he's letting on. I guess in his words, that's what makes us different. "How does the ache in your head feel now?" he asked, taking us back to the first battle I encountered after waking up. I noticed the ease while I was having my bath, and it worked just as he said it would. "Better, thank you. Your herbal tea worked. Perhaps before I leave you could give me the recipe? I have a feeling I would need it because last night won't be my last visit to the bar." I felt him smile. "Sure, before you go, I'll write it out for you." I heard a crack, and I knew he was making omelets. My stomach growled in hunger and excitement, knowing I'd have my favorite as breakfast, even though he didn't know that. After this breakfast, I'm going to ask him what I can do for him, and I pray his answer is the one in my mind. It wouldn't be a payment, just me killing two birds with one stone. He turned off the cooker, took off his apron, and carried the plates over to me, dropping them on the table when he got to where I sat. I stared at the plate of fried chips and omelet, and my mouth watered instantly. He moved to the fridge and brought out a can of orange juice and 2 glass cups. He returned and set one on the counter next to my plate and the other next to his. I smiled, wanting him to sit before I eat, despite being starved. "Thank you," I said, picking up my fork and digging into the food. I moaned helplessly at how good it tasted in my mouth, and my lashes fluttered. When I opened my eyes again, I saw a shade of red flicker in Aaron's eyes before it faded away, but I couldn't put faith in what my eyes saw. I could tell he looked fascinated as he watched me. "You like it?" "Yes, just as much as I like the cook. There's no way I'm not fucking this man after we finish eating." I nodded like an idiot. "It's delicious." Speaking with a mouthful was a bad habit, but I couldn't help it. "You should have your own restaurant in the city. I'd pay to come and eat there, and also to see your gorgeous face," I said in my mind. He chuckled, his cheeks forming a shade of red. I've finally gotten to him. This calls for celebration. I can't. I have a pack waiting on me to lead, can't be bothered opening one. There was nothing wrong with having a restaurant and a park, but I didn't push further. I understand, but this, I pointed to my plate, is good. Thank you, Zera. He called my name for the first time since I'd woken up, and I forgot to breathe. My eyes stayed on him, watching his hazel eyes flicker adorably and his jaw flex as he chewed on the chips. I wanted to straddle him here and now, and knowing I couldn't felt crushing. I lowered my head to my plate and wielded my mind into submission of its naughty thoughts. This man was being a noble human being, and here I was thinking only about sex and my pleasure. Do better, Zera, I scolded myself. I finished my breakfast and he took the plates to have them washed. Do you need my help? He shook his head. No, just sit and look pretty. He winked at me. But my cheeks were on fire. This wasn't me thinking. This man wanted me too. He called me hot, pretty, and he just winked at me. Does he have to spell it before I launch at him? I've never felt this much attraction for a person. Not even Owens in all his effort had this much effect on me. This man affected me with every move he made, every word he said, and the longer I stayed, the harder it would be to resist him. He finished and arranged the plates into the rack where they belonged before turning to me. I think it's time to call your friend, don't you think? He cocked his brow at me. Okay, why did I have the feeling he was chasing me off? Because this isn't your house, and you're not his girlfriend. You're the girl he helped last night because he was a better human than most people. That doesn't mean he wants you to overstay your welcome. You may have turned him into your trophy husband in your head, but he did not do the same. My eyes dropped, but I tried to keep my voice sharp. Oh yeah, it is. I will go do that now. I got down from the stool and made my way to the bedroom where my bag, phone, and clothes were. I dipped my hand into my bag and brought out my phone. Then I turned it to see a few missed calls and 3 unread messages on my WhatsApp. I took a quick review to see one message was a long rant from my mother. The stunt I pulled yesterday must have really pissed her off. I could tell her message revolved around how she wished she swallowed me instead, and that would not be the worst thing she'd ever said to me. I tapped on my call icon on the screen and went through the call history and saw 3 missed calls from Lionel, 2 from Dia, and 1 from Mom. My eyes caught the outgoing calls, and I saw I had called Dia 3 times last night. Aaron spoke the truth when he said he had called my friend but had no luck reaching her because I didn't make these calls. I tapped on Dia's name and dialed her number. Unlike the other times from last night, this one was successful, and her radiant voice came through almost immediately. Hey babe, how are you? I'm good, and you? I'm doing great. I tried calling a few times yesterday, but you didn't pick up. How did the wedding go? Ah, yes, the root of all the paths I took yesterday, Owens and Tatiana's wedding. I wouldn't know. I left after speaking my truth. What? You didn't. She squealed over the phone, and I had to hold it away from my ear. Now I wish I was there to have seen their smug faces. I bet your mom was super furious, she snorted. She was, and I know still is. She was, but there was nothing she could do about it, I answered, remembering the murderous look on her face during our last confrontation. I am glad you stood up for yourself, Zera. You deserve to, after everything they've put you through. Me too. I will come back to the campus today. I wanted to give you a heads up. The last time I came without informing her, I met her and Greg, her boyfriend, in a heated sex session, and I had to wait outside because I knew they wouldn't stop for me. Oh, I'm sorry. Greg and I took a trip to the countryside, and we would come back on Monday. I also took the key, she explained, in an apologetic tone. I thought you might stay at the family house through the weekend. If I didn't pull the stunt I did yesterday, perhaps I still would have had that option. Dia was my roommate and only friend. I had a few others, but these were people that knew about Tatiana and Owens all those years and kept it away from me. They weren't my friends. I'd rather sleep under the bridge. Lionel was another option, but he had moved back to live with our mother after he couldn't afford rent 6 months ago. In conclusion, I had nowhere to go, and that sucks. Where did you sleep last night? Dia's question snapped me back to reality. A kind stranger took me home after I passed out at the club, I answered before adding, "It's not what you are thinking, Dia." "What?" she asked, acting clueless. I didn't say anything. "Is he cute?" I nodded, then realized she couldn't see me. "Yes, he's gorgeous." "Much gorgeous than Greg?" Her boyfriend Greg was charming with his green eyes and alluring smile, but he was in no way close to Aaron in looks. Not in a million years. "So much more, Dia. He's like a god of perfection. I want him so bad, but I feel he doesn't want me to, or at least not as much." "Damn. Take a picture before you leave." "Leave, yes. He asked me to leave. Well, not in the way I just put it, but it was close to it. The reality of homelessness was staring at me, and I was gossiping about the features of the man called Aaron. Where would I go when I leave, Dia? I don't have enough money to stay in a hotel until Monday. Your airtime has been exhausted and your call terminated, the computerized service provider said, and my call ended instantly. Fuck! I tossed my phone on the bed in fury. I had to leave, and telling Aaron my friend had gone on a country tour and left with the hostel key would seem like a cheesy excuse. But it was the truth. He probably would then ask me to stay with my other friends, but I have none, and my family wasn't an option either. So I was fucked left, right, and center. I couldn't even imagine how he would look at me. This was the only place I could stay. The only other option was on the bridge, and sleeping there was just as dangerous as sleeping in the club. I heard a small knock on the door and I turned around immediately. "Come in." The door cracked open and in walked Aaron with a neutral expression on his face. "Did you call her?" "I did." "Okay," he nodded. "You don't look so thrilled. She's not at the hostel. She went on a country tour with her boyfriend, and she took the key because she didn't think I'd return till Monday." I explained, hoping to God that he doesn't think I was making it up. "Oh," was all he said. "Yeah, I know this sounds like me making it up, but it's the truth. Do not worry, though. You've been generous enough, Aaron, and I will not ask you to do more than you already have. Unless you insist, and then I'll accept," I said in my head. "I will gather my things and I'll leave." Concern showed on his face. "Where will you go then?" I didn't know, but I'd find my way. He had shown me that good people exist in this world, and I believe I would come across someone outside there. "I don't know. Do you have any other friends?" I shook my head. "Not since last month. I don't. Then stay." The two words came out without hesitation. Yes, I wanted to stay, but hearing him say it now, I knew I couldn't take it. I flashed him a wry smile. "You don't have to pity me. I'll find my way." He took a step forward, and my heartbeat skipped. "I'm not saying this out of pity. I really enjoyed your company, so stay through the weekend." "Say no more, master. Your wish is my command." I pressed my lips together and nodded. "Okay, thank you. I promise I won't get in your way. You will not even know I'm here." "Well, I would know. I have thin ears," he pointed out with a devilish smile dancing at the corner of his mouth. "Got it. Do you need my help with anything?" I cocked my brow, despite knowing that someone who could afford this place would not need the help of someone like me, but I wanted to ask anyway. "What can you do for me?" he asked, and his words left me in a dilemma because they sounded lustful towards the end. Still, I didn't want to read meanings into his words. "Anything you want, just name it." He licked his full rosy bottom lips and took a step forward. Again my heart skipped a beat, but I kept my focus on him and didn't move away. Another step would cover up the space between us, and from the look in his eyes, he knew that too. He took the next step, covering the space between us so that the rich, manly smell of him filled my nostril. He towered over me, with desire brewing in his alluring eyes, and a smirk crawled its way to his face. His hand came up and stroked my cheeks and the fine line of my jaw. I moaned a little and bit my lips to stay still. "You can't give me what I want," he growled. "Well, if I know what it is, I would be able to tell my chances." "I can try," I said, not wanting to give up or have him cut my legs from under me like he was doing. His thumb slides up my bottom lips, running slow but sensual lines over them and sparking up responses and urges in me. "Zera," he moaned my name out loud before letting his hand drop from my lips. "I shouldn't." He stepped back, and I felt my heart clench painfully in my chest. He turned to leave, and I spoke. "I want you, and I'm certain you want me too. Then what's so wrong about letting our wants for each other burn? Because I don't want you thinking this is payment for my generosity. You're a good girl, and I might be wrong, but I think this is your way of paying the debt you think you owe me, he said and exited the room. I stood in my room, lost and horny. The little thing he did with his hands had awakened so many urges and desires, and leaving without satisfying those desires wasn't such a good thing. He was right. I wanted to repay him for his kindness, but I also wanted him, and that had nothing to do with his generosity. I wanted him since I first laid eyes on him at the club, but he doesn't know that. One thing is certain, he wants me too, and he thinks I'm hot. I guess I just have to make him understand I want him for him, and not because of his big heart. His big heart just makes me want him more. I raced out of the room in search of him. The last place I saw him was in the kitchen, and when I got there, I looked around, but didn't see him there. He wasn't in the living room either. I figured he was in his room despite not knowing where his room was. I returned upstairs, and just before I reached the door to the room I stayed in, I noticed a door cracked. This had to be his, and the closer I got, the surer I became, because the room smelt like him. I pushed open the door and entered, before shutting it and pressing my back against it. I heard the shower running, and the voices in my head told me to take off my clothes and join him in the shower. That would be hot, but I shook the thoughts off. I would wait for him to come out. I told myself, and I mentally did the countdown. After almost 7 minutes of waiting, the bathroom door opened and Aaron walked in with nothing but a long white towel covering his waist. His black hair was damp and stuck to his face, and beads of water rolled down his toned chest over his abs and disappeared into the towel. His eyes met mine, and they twitched in confusion, but he stayed silent and just watched me. I came here because I wanted to ask my chances of being with him, if I wasn't doing it to repay him. It was going to be a brief discussion with no room for fumbling, but now having him half-naked, wet, and yummy made it harder than it should. In a situation like this, speaking would not be easy. "I'm guessing you came here to say something?" He spoke after I gawked at him for nearly 2 minutes and said nothing. I shook my head, then nodded like an idiot. Yeah, I just didn't think you'd be naked." His eyes narrowed. "I think everyone needs to get naked to take a shower." Yes, he was right. I was the idiot here. "I meant I didn't know you would take a shower now," I stressed out. "I came to ask you a question." "Okay," he folded his arms across his chest and his biceps flexed beautifully. "Because you want me?" "Yes, and because I think you're pretty, smart, and crazy." "I like that," he admitted. My cheeks burned and I dropped my eyes from his. This was so much more than I had prepared for. "I am not many men." His tone didn't show if he took offense. "And the men you've been around are assholes who care about themselves more than they do you." He's right, they did. Wait, he cares about me? He didn't even know me, and yet he cared. That felt very weird. I turned to exit his room, then paused and turned around. He was this close to yanking off his towel when I turned, and now he had to hold on to it until I took my leave. "One more question," he sighed. "What is it? Are you gay?" I asked because all cards had to be checked. "No, I am not gay. I love women, and soon you'll see that too." Soon? That meant he had me in mind, and the realization of that made my day so much better. I hoped the soon wouldn't take forever to come. I stepped out of my room, back in the polo and blue jeans. I styled my hair into a ponytail, which gave my face a fresh look, and I made my way out of the room. I met Aaron in the living room in black jeans trousers and a blue t-shirt. He was reading a book which I couldn't make out the name, and he seemed pretty invested in it. I doubted he'd feel my presence, but when he spoke up, he made me realize he noticed. "You showered." I stood corrected. I nodded, then realized he couldn't see me. "Yeah. How did you know? I smell clean." I felt him smile. "Yes, you smell clean," he agreed. "I figured I needed one after I left your room." He chuckled and dropped the book in his hand, and his eyes lifted to stare at me. "Your hair is in a ponytail," he stated the obvious. I nodded. "Yes, it's a minor change. I like it." He chuckled and rose to his feet. "Perhaps it is." He made his way over to me. "But it's lunchtime. I need to make lunch." He headed towards the kitchen, only to stop and turn to me with an arched brow. "Want to help?" I wordlessly nodded and fell in line with him, stopping only when we got into the kitchen. "What are we making?" I asked. The handsome devil smiled before answering. "Babies." I shivered as images of me spread out on the counter, taking him from different angles plastered in my mind. I shook the thoughts off and giggled weakly, despite wanting him to do what he just said. "Aha, funny, but seriously, what are we making?" "I thought a quick chicken hummus bowl would be nice, but I want nothing spicy on my tongue," he informed me, and my legs clamped together to keep them steady. I knew the rest of the sentence. I had a dirty mind and knew he wouldn't have anything spicy on his tongue because he planned on taking it somewhere else later. This man had turned the game around and was doing the mind-fucking this time. I couldn't complain. I wanted this. "Sounds like a treat, then," he smirked. "My treat would be you screaming and asking for more." I swallowed on nothing and blinked a few times. There had been a change in him. The man I had met and even confronted in the room earlier wasn't this man. This seemed to have been caged all the while and now had been let loose. I loved it, and I couldn't wait for him to lay his hands on me. The weight was killing me. We dived into cooking, with little talks and flirty remarks here and there, but I soon changed the topic. I wanted to know this man whom I couldn't wait to have my way with, and I got us involved in a little talk. There were no ways I'd spend a week with this guy and not at least know the first thing about him. "So you live around here or you came visiting?" I asked. "Neither. I am here on business." "What business?" His eyes narrowed at me, and I realized I might have overstepped with my question. I cleared my throat awkwardly. "I'm sorry. My curiosity gets the better of me sometimes." He closed the pot on the cooker up and leaned his back against the counter. "Don't be sorry, you're curious. It is a good thing. Curious people never stop learning." I feel like if I stay around this man long enough, I might turn into a walking bag of wisdom. "Does that mean you're going to tell me what business you're doing in this town?" Skepticism lingered in my voice as I stared at him. He smiled. "My family mine gold, and we came to meet a few wholesalers in the city." He finished, and this explained how he afforded such a luxurious place. I wanted to ask since I woke up, but now I no longer have to. "What are the 3 first things you noticed when you first saw me?" I paused and glanced at him, trying to remember the first few things I noticed about him last night. The first thing I noticed when I saw him last night was his looks. He was gorgeous without a doubt, and then when he came closer and spoke, I figured he was also very rich, with maybe a couple of businesses to his name. Waking up in this massive house affirmed that suspicion. Third, he was older, and I knew that although a very gorgeous man, he was at least 10 years older than me. That didn't stop my lust for him, though. Rich, gorgeous, and old. "Old?" he repeated, his brow furrowing as if that was the only thing I said. I shrugged. "I call people 5 years older than me old." "I am old," he affirmed with a chuckle. "I didn't think you noticed while fucking me last night." "I did, and it made you even hotter," I winked at him. After 15 minutes, lunch was ready. I grabbed 2 plates and handed them to him. He accepted and flashed me a flirty smile. Once served, we dived in to eat, and I noticed his lingering gaze on me every once in a while. In my defense, I was in the presence of the hottest man I have ever seen, so this was normal. I was halfway into my food when I noticed that this time, unlike the other times, his gaze had locked and stayed fixed on me. "What?" He shrugged, his eyes not wavering. "Nothing. You're not eating," I pointed out. "That's because I'm hungry for something else." I didn't dare ask what I think. I knew what it was at this point. "Oh," I set down my cutleries and placed my hands on the kitchen island. "What are you going to do about it, then?" "I want to take and claim," he answered, his voice showing much restraint. "What's stopping you?" "You can't give me what I want, and I do not want to hurt you." His eyes became tender as he admitted the truth. This had to be the longest and most honest conversation I ever had with someone interested in having sex with me. I have been hurt before a few times during sex, but like he said, those were sorry excuses for men. They never took my well-being and comfort into consideration, and only cared about themselves and their needs. This man knew who he was in bed and was looking out for me. That should be my decision, and I've been with men before. I tried to back up my point. None of them were like me, sweetheart. My lips paused, taken by surprise by his pet name as well as his arguing point. That should also be left for me to conclude upon. He got up from his stool and moved towards me, my heart picking up its pace with every step he took. He leaned in and his breath fanned over my face, hot, weakening, and mind-numbing. "You should be running, Zera," he said with a voice so raw it made me shudder against him. "The most sensible thing to do is run from someone like me." "I don't want to run," I stubbornly stated, worn out by his long game. It wasn't helping anyone. He wanted me, I could see that, and I wanted him too. He moved his forehead against mine so that our noses touched. "Oh, darling, but you should. I won't be like those little boys you've been with. I won't stop when you want me to. I won't stop until I'm completely buried in your mind and soul. You will belong to me." Perhaps I should have listened to the warning and taken to my heels, because the things he said were words that should scare me on another day, yet I didn't scare. I wanted to belong to him, at least for the weekend, and I feared we might never reach that point with how we were going. "I will belong to you," I repeated. I didn't know what I was saying, and he knew that too, and was deciding upon his next action, wondering if it was the right thing to do, if I could handle what I was bargaining for. I saw the line of his bulge in his towel earlier. I knew he was well endowed as a man, much bigger than the men I'd been with in the past, but it was nothing I couldn't handle. "Don't bite more than you can chew, Zera," my mind warned me. "Sometimes it's okay to live dangerously," the voice in my head pointed out. I went with it, instead of the safe voice, and closing the space between us, I kissed Aaron's lips. He drew a sharp breath, surprised by my bold move, but didn't hesitate to kiss back. He wrapped his arms around my waist and pulled me closer to himself. He came down on me, kissing me hard. I felt too worn to move, so I laid still, not even able to cover up, and my lashes fluttered. A hand slipped around my hips a minute later, and he hauled me closer to his body. I heard him sigh, and then he leaned in and placed a soft kiss on my forehead. He mumbled something I couldn't hear because I fell into a state of sleep the next second that followed. My eyes fluttered in the bed and I stared up at the ceiling. He knew his way in the bed, and that alone was a blessing in disguise, and being the decent human being he was, it made it even better. He was a 10, and never in my wildest dream did I think I would ever cross paths with someone like him. I would definitely not forget about him for a long time. Monday was still far away, but Aaron wasn't. I pulled myself up from the bed to sit down and glance at the gorgeous man sleeping beside me. Sure, I didn't love him and he didn't love me, but to an extent, I felt such a strong connection with him than I ever felt with another. Perhaps I was crazy, or I was thinking too much. He felt safe. That alone made me feel comfortable enough to trust my body and mind to him, and I haven't regretted doing that yet. I glanced around the room covered with white paint and curtain and a large glass window that showed off the massive backyard. A part of me wanted to know what living alone here felt like, but I didn't ask. It wasn't my place to raise the question. My mind wandered to the many partners he may have brought over to spend the weekend in the past, and that didn't stay right with me. I didn't like the idea of Aaron with another woman, but I'd be a fool to think a man like Aaron didn't have a lot of women flocking to him and seeking his attention. He may have even given in to their advances more than I'd like to think about. Trust my mind to ruin a perfect time. I needed a shower to clear my head of the many thoughts now running through it. I made my way to the bathroom I saw him step out of when I came in to speak to him this morning. I opened the door, stepped in, and shut it. There was a bathtub at the left side door and a shower on my right. There was a demarcation towards the shower that led further, and I knew that was the toilet because my bathroom had the same design. Despite longing for a long bath, I needed a quick shower. I made my way over to the shower, and when I got there, I turned it on, flicking the warm button and waiting for the shower to get warm. When it got warm enough, I stepped in and let the warm water beat against my skin to ease the aches. My eyes fluttered, and I flattened my palms against the wall as the water beat against my back, traveling down between my butt and my legs. "You look so hot from this angle." I heard the sleepy, hoarse voice of Aaron from across the bathroom. "You're awake." You were no longer in bed, I could no longer sleep, he answered. My heart fluttered at his words. I didn't know I had such an effect on him. I'm sorry, I turned so my front fully faced him. He stepped forward. Don't be sorry. I don't want to get used to this, used to you. But I can't help it, Zera, he confessed to my utmost surprise. My heart was hammering against my chest at this point. I couldn't help it, and neither could I control it. Do you think it's fair that you're becoming my drug, even though I don't want you to be? Even though I know you shouldn't be the one for me, or me for you? It's not fair, Aaron, I answered, knowing the dangerous path we were both taking. I still wanted this man, despite my better senses, asking if I didn't hear what he was saying. There was more to his words, and if I wasn't too intoxicated by my want for him, I would have listened and understood that. I placed my hands on his chest, feeling the hammering of his caged heart, and I felt him jerk in response. I don't think it's fair, having to want what you shouldn't, but I know you shouldn't blame yourself too much. Sometimes things happen, and it's beyond our control. It's because fate decides most of our path and not we ourselves.